BioShock, one of my most favorite games of all time, and a series I am insanely passionate about. It was actually the reason I started the channel in the first place. I wanted to look back at BioShock 1 and see if it was really that good so many years after launch. And after enjoying that process, I decided to do the sequel too, that I surprisingly found better than the original, which is quite controversial. Now usually in these videos I would say, if you haven't already checked those out, go take a look, but honestly those were my first couple of videos, and they're not very good. The quality was pretty trash, so I probably wouldn't recommend watching them, but on the flip side, my current content isn't much better, so maybe there's no difference, so check it out if you want. Anyway, I loved BioShock 1 and 2. It was one of the first titles to make me really want to learn the world that the devs had created, and the gameplay and atmosphere was like nothing I'd ever played before. BioShock 1 is probably the game I have replayed the most, full stop. But we're not here to discuss them games, we're here to talk about BioShock Infinite, the most successful title in the series, and honestly, the worst one in my opinion. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that BioShock Infinite is a bad game, but it's not great. And honestly, if it didn't have the BioShock title, it would be a very good action-adventure title with an insanely deep story. Unfortunately, my biggest issue with Infinite is that it wants to have its cake and eat it too. It wants to constantly let us know that this game is new and a new story for a new audience, but it also kind of wants to pander to people like me who absolutely loved Rapture in the original titles. It leaves Infinite with a bit of an identity crisis. And behind the scenes, it wasn't much better. The game had insane delays several times, and so much content and story elements cut that the game that was shown back in the day before it launched is not the game we got today. A moment of silence for what could have been. The game was supposed to dive into a multiverse theory and explore that in a BioShock setting, quite ahead of its time back when it released. Nowadays, sure, we have multiverses in everything, but back in 2013 it wasn't something we were really accustomed to, so it was ambitious to say the least. Unfortunately, like I said, the cut content means it didn't really get explored too well. It's a shame, it could have been a really awesome topic to explore in the game, and it just feels like it was a bit weak in the release title. And with a possible BioShock movie releasing on Netflix at some point, if they can sort out the funding, I'm really worried this is going to be so bad. Oh god. So like I said, with that on the horizon, I think it's high time to finally finish this franchise and take a look at BioShock Infinite and see if it was really that good. Okay guys, we have a problem. 97% of you guys are not subscribed to the channel. What's wrong? Don't you like me? Please keep in mind that if you find this video slightly above dumpster fire trash, you can seriously help support the channel by hitting the funny button that releases the good feeling in my brain. Yeah, that one, just right, yeah, just click it. Thank you so much. Now on to the video. So unlike Jack and Subject Delta, this time around we play as a not-so-silent protagonist, Booker DeWitt.
Everyone knows it's Booker.
That's me.
A private investigator who likes to gamble almost as much as he likes to cultivate liver disease. He is offered a deal to go to Colombia and retrieve a woman, and if he does this, his debt will be wiped clean. Bring us the girl and wipe away the debt. I'm sure this statement will not get old anytime soon. We head to a lighthouse, and after inputting one of those old school game save passwords, we head to the city in the sky, Colombia.
Hallelujah.
Now, Colombia as a concept is super interesting, but it's still kind of considered a secret city. My issue with this is, sure, Rapture is at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. Not many people are gonna stumble upon that. Colombia has an issue, you just need to look up. They took the hidden in plain sight thing way too seriously. Colombia does look absolutely stunning though, and has some of the best set pieces that I've seen since, well, BioShock 1. So Rapture was more man versus the government, but this city has some serious religious vibes. That's apparent right out the gate, as you have to be baptized before you can even enter the city. I sure hope this doesn't symbolize anything far later in the game. Things are very quaint and quite good in Colombia. A stark difference to Rapture, and I'm gonna warn you now, I'm gonna make a lot of comparisons with Colombia and Rapture. That might not seem fair, but the game does it itself constantly, so I think it's okay in this game. So Columbia is all sunshine and lollipops, whereas Rapture was more, what the fuck happened here? It's a big step away from that survival horror atmosphere, and is already one of the design choices that I really dislike. I love that horror aspect in Rapture, and though things do get a bit more eerie later on in Columbia, it never really loses this paradise feel, and I unfortunately find that so boring. But the graphics are a massive step up. The character designs and models almost look Disney-esque, and that will become very obvious later on when we meet a certain someone. Our infiltration into the city isn't exactly secret, as the prophet that founded the city, Comstock, foretold of a heretic, us, will most likely appear in the city and kind of fuck shit up. It seems like some sort of festival's going on in Columbia, and after playing with the new plasmids, Vigors, at the fair, we head to the raffle and things start to unravel a little bit.
Number 77.
Oh, what do you know?
Over here, he's the winner.
Number 77, come and claim your prize. First round.
Oh no.
It was me! It was all me! Please! Please!
Oh no.
Please! What are you doing?
Come on. Are you gonna throw it? Or are you taking your coffee black these days?
Oh no. Say what you will about Rapture, but at least it was a little bit more progressive than this place. Anyway, Booker gets outed as the heretic, and we get into our first enemy encounter. And the gameplay is passable. People fall either side of the fence with Infinite, and some really enjoy the combat system with the plasmas, damn it, Vigors, having uses rather than just a standard Eve bar from previous titles. And now instead of having all your guns you collect on your journey, you are now confined to just 2 at a time. To me, the freedom and creativity in the fights is far more limited than the previous BioShock games. And that doesn't help with the areas. You find yourself fighting in more generic battle arenas than just the city streets of Rapture. This might sound incredibly dumb, but it feels too video gamey. When you go to an open area, you already know you're gonna have an encounter here. In BioShock 1 and 2, you never knew when a splicer would appear. It made you feel more on edge. Now this wouldn't be an issue in a standard FPS title, but the fighting in the previous games was a if it's not broke, don't fix it situation. Why did they change it and make it far worse? Now it's not all a loss, you can kind of still combine plasmids, Vigors, just like before, and you can do some cool combos like having a group of killer crows covered in electricity kill your enemies. Now that's pretty neat, but there's not too much room to mess around. Every Vigor has a trap form where you can place him on the ground, but I don't know about you, but I never used this. There was never situations where I felt like, oh, I might be getting into a fight, better make traps for everyone. Like in BioShock 2 where that was perfect. Weapons are pretty boring too. You get your standard pistols to assault rifles and snipers, and you can upgrade these at vendors, but it doesn't change much. It's usually just ammo consumption and straight up damage. It's pretty boring. Remember in BioShock 2 where you could upgrade a bolt launcher so it did fire damage? Or a harpoon gun that could stick enemies to walls? That was good shit. None of that's in this game. I found myself running the hand cannon and sniper most of the time, which is a stark contrast to BioShock 1 and 2 where I used pretty much everything I could at any given time. Anyway, using the new pretty sweet skull rail system to escape the cops, we finally get to an Andrew Ryan-esque encounter with Comstock, and he isn't too pleased we're here, even though he knew we were coming. But that's not all he knows. He knows a little bit too much about us, including that we lost our daughter Anna. Maybe that's why we have the AD branded on our hand, for Anna DeWitt. Booker shrugs this off and heads to Monument Island, where they seem to be siphoning energy from whoever's held captive at the top of this tower. Lucky enough for us, that's exactly who we've been looking for. Meet our own Disney princess, Elizabeth. And I'm gonna give props. The level of detail on her and the animation she does is ridiculously good, and most certainly modeled after Belle from Beauty and the Beast, right? Anyone else? In fact, a lot of Elizabeth's character can be linked to Belle from Beauty and the Beast, from a dual personality protagonist and being sold off due to debt, but more on that later. It's quite impressive. I feel like I get her personality almost instantly with the cheeky eyebrow raises and the general glee she has. She is a great character. This is one of the best companions. My favorite moments in this game is when Elizabeth is just super giddy as heck, Thinking about it, she's kind of just like having a golden retriever puppy with you. Like everything makes her happy. I really hope we don't fuck it up. We escape the tower with Elizabeth and get chased down by her protector, Songbird. Crash into a nearby beach, we get a bit more slice of life in Colombia, and as this is Elizabeth's first time outside of the tower, like I said, golden retriever puppy, she is just so excitable.
What could be better than this?
If you listen carefully, you can actually hear a remixed version of Girls Just Wanna Have Fun in the background. But we don't get to Fortnite floss with Elizabeth for too long as we get outward on our way out of the pier and get into combat. So Elizabeth isn't just a pretty face, she'll run around the areas while we're fighting looking for ammo and vigor salts and first aid. It's quite ingenious, she'll tend to find whatever it is you need at any given time. Even outside of battle, she'll look for money. Honestly, it's probably the most useful companion in any video game. But she doesn't just retrieve things. I just realized I said she was a golden retriever and she retrieves stuff for Booker. She can also open tears to bring in objects and items from other dimensions to help in battle. Now this in theory is a super cool mechanic, and like I said in the first sort of trailers and premieres before the game launched, it looked like this was going to get really mental with what she could bring through. But like most of the stuff in BioShock Infinite, it's only really half explored. I wanted to really pull in some random objects to sell that there are other dimensions and crazy shit going on outside of our universe. And in the DLC, we do get a little bit of that where you could like summon things like samurais to help you fight in Rapture. That's pretty cool. Why wasn't there more of this? The base game really only tends to pull in a turret or a wall, stuff that's already in the world. Like imagine if Irrational Games avoided all ties to Rapture and just didn't mention those games at all. This was a fully fledged title, not linked to the same universe. Awesome. And then while you're exploring like halfway through the game, Elizabeth could pull in a Big Daddy to help you fight, just out of the blue, completely random. That would be so cool. That would be a massive nod to the games for the fans of the series, and newcomers would be like, what the fuck? Why is this fat guy helping me now? That would be dope. Like I said, cool idea, but half-baked. Anyway, back to the story. We meet someone who actually knows Booker. It turns out Booker and Slate served at Wounded Knee, and as we go through this museum level, which looks so fucking cool by the way, like I've never gone to an actual museum IRL, but do they look this good? If they look this good, I might need to change that. The narrative in this museum is pushed that Comstock is a savior and a war hero, but Slate seems to think that he wasn't actually there at Wounded Knee. It's all a hoax.
Comstock led the Colombian troops to Peking.
Comstock wasn't there! The Boxers took my eye and 30 of my friends! Is there even a stone to mark that sacrifice?
Weirdly enough, Booker doesn't comment at all. He doesn't put his 2 cents in at any point throughout this. It's really odd. That's not all the revelations we have here. It turns out Elizabeth is actually Comstock's daughter, and someone called Fitzroy killed Comstock's wife. Neat. I'm sure this isn't a fabrication. Once we defeat Slate, we get an illusion of choice here on whether to kill him or leave Slate alone to his devices, which honestly seems a bit worse than killing him. This has happened a few times up until now. It's quite heavy-handed on the idea that even though we have parts of the game where we have to make a decision, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't actually make a difference. Like Spare and Slate here, it just ends with him being catatonic later on in a jail cell. We board the First Lady and we trick Elizabeth into thinking we're heading to Paris, but instead we're taking her to New York to wipe away our debt.
Come on.
It's okay, Elizabeth. I also miss BioShock 1. Elizabeth knocks us out and escapes, and we get roped into helping Fitzroy fund an uprising of workers with guns. And honestly, after seeing how they've been treated in Colombia, I'm actually okay with his decision to help them out. Unfortunately, the guy she needs to make the guns is dead, so Elizabeth decides to open a tear to another reality where the gunmaker wasn't captured and tortured to death. This causes some issues. Here we fight a handyman, which is basically Infinite's Big Daddy. They jump around a bit and hit hard. That's it. And honestly, I'm going to take a second here to talk about the enemies in this game. The enemies in Infinite are very bare bones and easy to take out at the start, but the further you get into the main story, they just become bullet sponges for no reason. So that standard guy you took out with one headshot early on now takes a full clip for some reason. And there really isn't any variety in the bad guy pool. At least with the other 2 games, the splicers changed up. They had different abilities. Here it tends to just be man with gun or man with bigger gun. or man that could do very good jazz hands. Anyway, we find the guns, but they're too much for us to carry, so Elizabeth opens another tear into a separate reality where Booker actually decided to stay in Columbia without looking for Elizabeth and teamed up with Fitzroy and died, becoming a martyr for the Vox Populi in their uprising. It turns out Booker becoming a martyr actually really motivated the Vox Populi, and they seem to be winning their revolution. But once Fitzroy sees that Booker is alive, she's a bit pissed off because this will undermine his sacrifice in that reality. Okay, this is getting insanely confusing, so I'm going to try and make sense of this. So there's almost an infinite amount of realities, and we can access them with Elizabeth through these tears. We leave our reality where Booker and Elizabeth have been the entire game so far, to find the gunmaker that died in our reality, who's alive in the second reality. Now, in that second reality, we find the gunmaker's equipment, but because it's just a little bit too heavy, why not jump to another reality, reality 3, where the gun equipment is now just guns and we can help fund the uprising. It's a bit mental. It's like if I go downstairs and see I haven't got any coffee, rather than going to the shop to get some, I'll just open a tab to where I just didn't have all the coffee. There we go. Problem sorted, I guess. So the rest of the game we will spend in reality 3. You guys follow? Great. I have no idea what I'm talking about. Okay, so Fitzroy seems to have gone off the deep end and she wants to kill Fink, the guy who's basically making a mint off all these workers and treating them badly. Okay, not too much of a problem, but she also wants to kill this child. Alright, I have a few issues now. I hated this in the original title. It really kills Fitzroy's character. Like, she is built up to be this greater than good figure who just wants equal rights. Simple as that. Why does she want to kill this child? What? This does get kind of written away in the DLC, but does that help? Does that make it better? The DLC didn't come out for months after launch, so this situation here was in the narrative of the base game. This is what you just think happens. I don't know if that's clever to then change it later, or if it's incredibly dumb. I don't know, let me know in the comments, guys. Did you like this twist? Is it a twist? I don't fucking know. Elizabeth is not okay with child murder, so she sneaks into the room and kills off Fitzroy. She then decides it's the perfect time to get a haircut and change her outfit. And now the Rule 34 community can go wild. They ate so good with Elizabeth. Holy shit. At least now we have something that at least somewhat resembles the early premieres of BioShock Infinite. So we actually tried to leave for Paris now that the whole revolution thing is dealt with. But Songbird attacks the ship and we kind of realize that we can't leave Columbia until we deal with this giant goddamn bird. So next stop is Comstock's house, but not before a motherfucking ghost? Oh my god. Okay, so I get that there was ghosts back in BioShock 1 and 2 because of the Eve. Sure, even that was a bit weak, but at least they explained it. This comes out of left field, and even the Lutesses don't really help make sense of it.
Is she the source of my power?
But what is she? Alive or dead?
Why do you ask what?
When the delicious question is when.
The only difference between past and present
Is semantics.
lives, lived, will live.
Dies, died, will die.
If we could perceive time as it truly was,
What reason would grammar professors have to get out of bed?
like us all, Lady Comstock exists across time.
She's both alive and dead.
She perceives being both.
She finds this condition disagreeable.
Perception without comprehension.
It's a dangerous combination.
Okay. So now we have to walk around the city following these ghost footsteps to unravel a conspiracy, but my first question is, she was fucking flying. Why is she now walking around a city barefooted? That is disgusting. Miyazaki would be so happy right now. Anyway, playing Blue's Clues, we explore some of these areas and kind of get revealed that the Lutece twins ain't actually twins. They are in fact the same person, just one came from another dimension. We had a few hints of this early in the game. And we learned that Comstock used these tears to receive prophecies of the future to trick the people of Columbia into thinking he was actually a prophet. Joke's on him though, using this machine, he became sterile. So no baby for Comstock. So he used a tear to kidnap his daughter from another reality where his PP did work. Like father, like daughter, they both solve any issue they possibly have by going into a different universe and just taking it. These guys need to go to an AA meeting or something. Lady Comstock hated this though. He seemed to love his fake daughter more than he actually loved her. So when she threatened to speak out and tell everybody the truth, he had her assassinated and blamed it on Fitzroy. You see, that's why she was in the museum. Oh boy, I hope you're making notes, guys, because this shit doesn't get easier from here on out. So anyway, Elizabeth and her ghost mother have a moment where they realize that Comstock needs to die, and just as we head off to try and do that, Songbird tracks us down and Elizabeth sacrifices herself and gets kidnapped to save Booker. So now we have to save Elizabeth again. We have made no progress on the simple plot of finding the girl and taking her to New York. We're back at square one. Also, I don't think I was supposed to jump out of this window to go save her. I should be dead. So we cross the bridge and end up through a tear where it's suddenly snowing.
Snow. It's July.
Booker thinks this is weird because it's actually July. He's obviously never gone to the UK. Over here, it would be weird if it wasn't snowing in July. All right, so everyone talks about this section. Comstock's house is absolutely amazing. It's a little short, but this is what I want from a BioShock game. It's got that eerie feeling where the enemies are far more creepy and creative. Ammo is an issue here, so you have to be very conservative. Like even just exploring, we have these screams of Elizabeth in the distance. It's so goddamn good. Infinite didn't need to be Rapture again, but more gameplay like this would have been perfect. It would have been the exact same tone, but a different story. Anyway, we slowly piece together that Elizabeth has been caught here for quite a few months, and we're actually in the future. After I open a door to go possibly save future Elizabeth, we get an insanely good jump scare.
Should be able to head downstairs and get to Elizabeth now.
Elizabeth, can you open a tear to a reality where I didn't shit my pants? This fucker really got me. Anyway, we meet up with Elizabeth, and turns out in this reality, Booker never actually managed to save her. So she ended up being tortured and working with Comstock, and not moisturizing, apparently. It turns out Comstock has a pretty bare bones plan of just, I want to take over the world. Super generic. Good job, Comstock. Old Elizabeth tells us that we can't save her, but we can go back in time and save our Elizabeth, and change the future so it doesn't end up like this. She sends us back with a document that only the real Elizabeth would understand, and we save her just in time.
I got you, it's okay. Okay, I'm gonna fix this. You ready?
Just do it.
Here.
Brother, what's that?
And then she pulls in a tornado. You see, Irrational, this is the stuff I wanted to see. Could you imagine being able to just summon a random fuck you tornado in an arena fight? That would be a hella cool. Why can't we do this? Anyway, she makes an idle threat at Booker and...
What are you going to do to stop me?
Not a damn thing.
I mean, Booker just doesn't give a shit at this point. And we end up fighting the entirety of Comstock's army and the Vox Populi. I honestly feel kind of bad that we're still killing the Vox. I mean, yeah, they went a little bit blood hungry, but I mean, their cause was just right. It feels kind of weird that we're actively fighting the people that were trying to stop slavery. Wait a minute. Are we the bad guy? We catch up with Comstock and we have a dick measuring contest. Booker loses and then self-harms Comstock. That sentence probably didn't make sense to you, but it actually does. Now, Elizabeth starts to seem a bit weird here. She's growing kind of numb to all this killing. But before we can dive into that, we find out that the document that future Elizabeth gave us was how to control Songbird, and we use him to destroy the tower, essentially giving Elizabeth a power-up.
The Whistler!
Oh boy, here we go. So BioShock has a record of pretty mind-blowing twists in their narratives, and I love them. The would you kindly moment in BioShock 1 is absolutely fantastic, and though there isn't really a twist per se in BioShock 2 base game, but the DLC definitely had a pretty awesome twist with the main character. Infinite kind of goes a bit wild with its twist. But before we dive into that, we've got to do a little bit of pandering to the fan base by sending us to Rapture to kill off Songbird. Like, even before they announced the DLC, this felt desperate, and I fucking hate how much I like this. We essentially go through the opening of BioShock 1 in reverse, and it's here where Elizabeth says she can see everything. She can feel what every Elizabeth in every universe is feeling right now. And trust me, those Elizabeths are doing some weird shit. Man, I want to go to the metaverse where I can fly for 30 seconds. That'd be great. Even though we have killed Comstock in this reality, there are tens of thousands of them all across the metaverse. So Booker decides we should go to the source. We should kill Comstock in the crib. He is more than happy to kill the child before it becomes Comstock. That's pretty dark, but Elizabeth says that she's all for it if Booker is. Bear in mind, this is Booker's decision.
Are you sure this is what you want?
I have to. It's the only way to undo what I've done to you.
Elizabeth is not pushing this. This is not what she wants to do necessarily. This is Booker's decision. After that discussion, we find ourselves at a baptism that Booker was about to take but chickened out of, as he didn't think taking this baptism years ago would wash away the horrible things he did at Wounded Knee. So he leaves and goes to New York, does a bit of drinking, does a bit of gambling, and we know the rest of the story up to that point. But I feel like that should be the tagline of this game, BioShock but ... But in other realities, Booker did follow through with this baptism and got really into religion. Like, he loved that shit. And with the help of a genius he found along the way, Lutece, he was able to see futures and then decided to build a city in the sky going by the name of Comstock. Booker is Comstock and Comstock is Booker. Booker's daughter was Elizabeth and Elizabeth is Anna DeWitt. We were the bad guys. So that phrase, bring us the girl and wipe away the debt, that wasn't go to Colombia and save this girl and then you've got a clean slate. This was, hey Booker, give us your daughter and we will get rid of the debt that you are so obviously in. Like, dude, you need to stop gambling. You're not good at it. Fortunately, after giving his daughter to one of the Luteces, he has a change of heart and tries to save her, but unfortunately, he wasn't able to do so and she ended up losing a finger as a portal closed. Oh shit. Booker realizing that killing Comstock at his birth actually means that Booker needs to die just before he makes the choice to baptize. And as he has his realization, all the Elizabeths from all these other metaverses come to kill Booker.
You chose to walk away, but in other oceans, you didn't. You took the baptism. You were born again as a different man.
Comstock.
It all has to end to have never started. Not just in this world, but in all of ours.
Smother him in the crib.
Smother. Before the choice is made. Before you are reborn.
And what name shall you take, my son?
He's Zachary Comstock. He's Booker DeWitt.
No. I'm both.
I feel like I had a dream like this once, maybe twice. A few times, okay. I also like that one of the Elizabeths is from the alpha gameplay trailers before the game launched. That's a nice touch. I'll give you credit there, Irrational Games. Ty Likey. Like, she even has the boobs. They reverted the nerf, guys. We did it. Woo! So with Booker dead, that's the end of the game. Now, this twist is fantastic and instantly makes you want to replay the game to see if you can grasp the little hints throughout the story. I have my issues with BioShock Infinite, but experiencing this twist in real time is up there as one of the best moments in video games. Like, right next to the original BioShock twist. And even games like Spec Ops: The Line, I won't spoil it, but that game has an amazing narrative and twist. So I kind of want to discuss this a bit more, which is weird in pre-recorded content, but I'm going to give it a go. So, okay, killing off Booker at the moment he decides to become Comstock would stop that Comstock from existing, but the Booker we play as, the one that dies, never went through with the baptism. He went straight to New York and grew as a person throughout our journey. There's also hundreds of thousands of different Comstocks and Bookers in different universes. Would killing this Booker off before he decided to become Comstock actually accomplish anything? No, it wouldn't. It would just, for this reality, change Booker and Comstock, right? Now, I feel like they're implying that every Elizabeth takes every Booker through this narrative hallway and always kills him off at the baptism, causing all Elizabeths to stop existing except ours. Our Elizabeth would exist because the events of our journey are what trigger her to kill all the others off. So she'll become, I don't know, like Elizabeth Prime now. Look, I'm not a smart man, so I might not be discussing this twist very well, and others have done it far better, but I do think it does add to the fun of this ending being like this, so there's a bit of a discussion. Like I said, I have my issues with some aspects of BioShock Infinite, and thanks to them, it's my least favorite in the franchise, but the story, absolutely fantastic. I just wished the DLC didn't completely shit on the story. Ugh. So it's time to talk about BioShock Infinite, Burial at Sea Episode 1 and 2. The most pandering DLC I have ever witnessed. Like I have said many times in this video so far, Infinite would be infinitely better if it didn't have so many ties to Rapture, and the DLC does not help things. Not in the slightest. Though it did do one thing right, it gave us the best design for Elizabeth. Hot damn, love this girl. Now, most of episode 1 of Burial at Sea is just a slice of life of Rapture before Frank Fontaine tries and, fuck shit up at the New Year's party. And, God, I hate how much I love this section. Exploring Rapture while it's living and breathing is so good and so interesting. And with the new coat of paint with Infinite's engine, it just looks so good. It's weird that seeing Rapture again almost has that same feeling of like coming home after years, like going back to your family home. Like living here would suck, but it oddly feels cozy to me. Anyone else? Anyone else get that feeling? I guess if I want to compare it to another video game, it's kind of like going back to Kanto in Gen 2 of the Pokemon games. I don't know, it's hard to explain. It does make me wish we got a game purely dedicated from the start to a pre-fucked up Rapture like this DLC gives. That would be amazing. Anyway, we join up with a new booker working as a PA down in Rapture, and him and Elizabeth head to see Sander Cohen. Yes, that Sander Cohen. Hell yeah. Love this guy. To inquire about a missing girl named Sally, and Sander Cohen is his enthusiastical self.
You shall not be mocked. Fitzpatrick! Please! The stick! Save him for God's sake! My muse shall not be mocked! Get them out of here!
And after we, waltz bad? Can you waltz bad? He freaks out and knocks us out.
I don't know what to make of you, Mr. DeWitt.
No!
Listen, we're not gonna keep...
Fitzpatrick!
And then ends up sending us to Fontaine's department store. Now, unfortunately, the gameplay is very much the same as Infinite's base game, down to the same guns and the same figures. God damn it, plasmids. Wait. Oh, I get it. The plasmids are unfortunately the same as the base game, but just changed descriptor to fit into the Rapture setting. It's super confusing and honestly was not needed. I wish they committed to just changing them back to what they were in BioShock 1 and 2. Shock Jockey basically works the same as the electric shock, so just do that. Ironically, the department store is a small section, but actually is more fun than anything in Columbia, and it's great to be able to fuck with splicers again. But not much happens story-wise till we start trying to slow cook a child in order to get her out of these little sister vents.
Sally, come out! It isn't working.
I told you she's coming.
It isn't working. Turn it off.
If you turn it off, it's not gonna work.
We have to turn it off. We are hurting her.
Once we do this and realize that she's actually turned into a little sister ages ago, Elizabeth decides to just plot dump on Booker. You see, this wasn't actually Booker living in Rapture. This was a Comstock who failed to steal Booker's Anna.
Shut down the machine! No, she's no proof! Shut it down!
And when she tragically died, he runs away to Rapture to start a new life and escape his problems. Have you noticed that this entire family, whenever there is a slight inconvenience, will open a portal to another universe to solve it? So a lot is left open-ended, but it's my interpretation that this is in fact the last Comstock in the metaverse. That's why Elizabeth is so bloodthirsty to take him out. But thinking about it, wouldn't he have still been killed at the baptism? Because that would have taken place before he tried to steal Anna. I'm just not gonna dive into that. Oh boy. So she takes her revenge, and that's the end of the episode. And I mean, if there's a way to go, it's getting railed from behind, right? That's not too bad. I feel like that's how I want to go out. Now, episode 1 was a nice frolic through Rapture in the Infinite engine. Good times all around, but episode 2 decides to really make things weird. and in my opinion, not only fuck up the base game story, but also the original story of BioShock 1. Why? So Elizabeth finally makes it to Paris. Now with all the Comstocks dead, she can enjoy retirement. Yep, checks out. This is what I assume all French people do in Paris. Though Elizabeth can't shake the horrible feeling that she kind of used Sally as bait just to get to Comstock. So she heads back to Rapture in the same reality where she killed off Comstock. And right out the gate, we meet our boy Atlas, or should I say Frank Fontaine. I wonder if I actually spoiled the twist in BioShock 1 for anyone. He takes the little sister Sally and we are tasked with getting Atlas and the department store afloat and back to the main Rapture. While looking for a way out, Elizabeth finds her own corpse. Oh god. As it turns out, the big daddy she used to kill Comstock doesn't discriminate against gender and drilled her too. This is why the Luteces didn't want to bring her back to Rapture in this timeline, as she had already died here, so coming back essentially makes her mortal and stuck in this reality. I guess just because she's already died here once, coming back means she's on her last life. I don't quite understand it. Something about her being an omnipresence and then now she's not. The gameplay's pretty dull as well. It's just sneaking around Rapture. You get a cool crossbow with tranq rounds, which is creative in some sense, but making Rapture into a stealth section doesn't sit well with me. And once you get a couple of guns, you can just go guns blazing anyway. It's just kind of the opposite to the gameplay I like in BioShock. Oh, and the Booker that's in this DLC, that's just Elizabeth's subconscious of the Booker from the base game that she liked. So we need to find Dr. Yi Sushong, as he might know of a way to help us out of this predicament. Jesus, okay. I'm going to speed through this a little bit because this gets a bit weird. So Sushong has been working with Fink in Colombia. Yes, that Fink who died. Through these tears thanks to the Luteces machine. This is why Colombia has protectors similar to the Big Daddies, and I mean, of course, Vigors being basically plasmids. They've been trading ideas this whole time. So Elizabeth uses Sushong's machine to go back to Colombia just before Fitzroy kills off Fink. Bear in mind, this is the exact same reality that we were in the base game, which is technically reality free from the base game because they go through two. Oh my god. I'm starting to not understand what's happening and I've written this all down. Anyway, we explore Fink's quarters and he has the most annoying system from going room to room. Like, who wants RNG to go to the bathroom? So why are we here? We are doing this to obtain some hair that Sushong thinks will help him make the Little Sisters and Big Daddies bond together, just like Elizabeth and the Songbird. So while exploring this area, we actually stumble upon a conversation between Fitzroy and the Luteces, where it comes to light that the twins are the reason why Fitzroy acted like she was going to kill the kid to provoke Elizabeth to draw blood and set her on the path to kill Comstock. Now, I hated how Fitzroy goes from a hero of the people to straight up murderer of children in the base game. And though this DLC and this dialogue does save her character a little, it's all about the grand scheme of things. What's more important, the play itself or the part you play in the play? I feel like the Luteces said that way better.
It's up to you what matters more.
Your part in the play?
Or the play itself.
Someone is coming.
She'll arrive, a girl.
She must leave. A woman.
And what makes the difference between a girl and a woman? Blood.
Your part in the play.
Or the play itself.
Turn her into a killer? How?
Give the girl no choice.
And she will be forced to make one.
I get it, but I still don't like it, like most of this game. We get back to Rapture and our boy Andrew Ryan does his thing. It's great to see you, man. I sure hope you save this DLC from being trash. He gives us a choice to work with him or Atlas. And when we reject him, he does what he always does and he sends a bunch of splicers to go kill us. Hey, at least he didn't wrongly accuse us of being KGB this time. Progress. And I like this section. It reminds me of BioShock 2, where you have to do the waves of splicers. It's pretty neat though. There's nowhere near as many traps that you can place, but it's the first time I used the plasmids in their trap form, so better late than never, I guess. Anyway, we do a bit more exploring of Rapture and we find out that Atlas was in fact Frank Fontaine. Oh well, what a shocker. Moving on. He decides to torture us as he believes that we know where his ace in the hole is. That's Jack, by the way, from BioShock 1. Well, the super secret code to control Jack, to be more specific. We tell him we don't know, and after being tortured for a little bit, he agrees to send us to Sushong's lab to find it, in exchange for him letting Sally go. It's here where we find the code, you know, the would you kindly? And we actually end up somewhat being responsible for Sushong's death in Rapture, because Why not? I really hate that Elizabeth is like the catalyst to why anything happens in BioShock 1. It's so annoying. We give Alice the code to control Jack, and we get a flash forward of him taking down the Apollo air flight and thus starting the events of BioShock 1 and kind of BioShock 2. Alice decides to beat Elizabeth to death, but she shares a little moment before she dies with the little sister Sally. Oh man, like I said, I hate the fact that Elizabeth is now the entire reason why the events of BioShock 1 and 2 take place, all for just this one little sister named Sally to be saved. Columbia and Rapture being so tightly connected is so unnecessary and only done so we can have Rapture and BioShock Infinite. Elizabeth's death is just so meh. Like, why bother saving her in the first place? Back in the base game, if this is how it goes. It's so needless and honestly quite a letdown for the title. It's heavily implied that she does all of this for one little sister because before she goes back to Rapture, she can see the future, where Jack saves the little sisters and incidentally Sally because of the actions of Elizabeth in the DLC in this reality first, right? Okay, I kind of get that. She's the ground zero for the good ending of BioShock 1. Fine. But isn't there thousands of other Raptures and other Sallys in the metaverse? Isn't there a universe where Jack takes the dark path and ends up eating all the little sisters to gain power and go to war with the world? Or are you just telling me there's one canon ending and it's because of this weird chick from a Sky City? Oh man. And like, why is this Sally in this timeline so important that Elizabeth sacrifices herself, who is a literal god at this point? It makes no sense and really leaves a bad taste in my mouth for the storyline as a whole. I wanted to love BioShock Infinite, and it isn't a bad game, but I feel like the grandeur Irrational Games and Kevin Levine wanted to go for was just too ahead of its time. Including Rapture was purely pandering to the fans of BioShock 1 and 2. It's like they didn't have much faith in Columbia being sold as its own thing. It had to have ties to Rapture. But BioShock 1 is an absolute classic and up there as one of my favorite games of all time, followed quite closely by its sequel, whose story was weaker but did everything far better gameplay wise. Infinite changed up the wrong aspects but had an excellent narrative till you get to the DLC where it just shits the bed. So I guess that's my order: BioShock 2 just above BioShock 1 and then BioShock Infinite. I really hope one day we get to explore Rapture again, but in its own full-fledged title, as I love this city to death. And with the BioShock movie rumors at Netflix having some weight to them, we could see another resurgence for the franchise and maybe get that same level of excitement that Fallout had with its show on Amazon. Dear Lord, this was meant to be a quick project between Dark Souls 1 and 2, but looking at this script right now, this is probably one of the biggest videos I've done. So yeah, sorry for the wait. And sorry if half of it's just nonsense and me just trying to digest the story, because this game is so crazy. I don't know if I've even touched on all the topics or if I've even made sense. Was this video good? It probably wasn't, but now I can safely say I have discussed each and every BioShock game to date. Now, I truly hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I would love to give a massive shout out to my patrons. You guys truly help support this dream of mine. Thank you so much. First up is The Shane 209. Next is Ali Tato, and of course, Pit Stab. You guys are the Rapture to my Columbia. And hey, if you're watching the video and you'd like to support the channel, click the Patreon link on the screen right now, and it will take you over to where you could sign up. I like to release hints and little puzzles for people to work out what is actually going on for the next video. I'm quite active on there, so check it out. I promise the Dark Souls 2 video will be out soon, but until then, stay safe out there guys, and I will see you in the next video. Tie out. Peace.